Hello, everyone. This is Jared Marlowe here with the Blue and Gray Education Society, and we have a real big treat for you today. We have with us Jason Edwards, who is a professor at Grove City College in Grove City, Pennsylvania. And I'm not going to take away too much of his introduction, but we're going to talk about a topic today that is rather interesting when it comes to Civil War history, and that is the topic of Elvis Presley. So I'm going to let Jason introduce himself and tell us a bit more about him and his life and what got him involved in this. So, Jason, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. As you said, I'm Dr. Jason Edwards, and I'm a professor of history at Grove City College, which is in western Pennsylvania, north of Pittsburgh. And I've been here for quite a while now, and it's a great place to teach. And in the upcoming spring semester, I'll be teaching a class on the Civil War. And so that I guess got me interested, or it was in preparation for teaching the class that brought about this connection, or as part of why I started thinking about Elvis and the Civil War. So with that doesn't make, I realize, initially a lot of sense potentially, but as I assume nobody needs to be told now that the Civil War has become, a hot button issue in society, and being a professor isn't really a scary type of profession, I realize, but the Civil War, teaching the Civil War is probably the most nervous type of topic for a professor to teach. And I used to joke that because the Civil War generates so much interest, that's one of the few subjects that maybe you get into class and there's actually somebody or a few people in the class that know more about it than you do, because that's been their real fascination. So traditionally, that's been my would be a nervousness to teach the class. But now it becoming such a political hot button, and people want to say, oh, well, the Civil War just has a simple explanation, and the sole and simple explanation is slavery. And that's not true of any war. Like, one word can't summarize the cause of any war or any historical event. Things are multi-causal. And so I had been thinking about, well, how do I want to, what are different ways that I want to start the class, and make sure the students understand, well, we're here to study the truth. We're here to study this in detail. We're here to study the nuance and really understand fairly the various sides and interests in the war. And that's not how probably they have been presented it in their previous education or in high school. That's certainly not the mainstream approach of just the general media in explaining the war. And so one of the ways that I thought about starting this off with the students is that I'm going to take an Elvis approach to the war, and that I want them to consider that. And so I plan on the first day playing his rendition of the American Trilogy, which combines the kind of theme song for the South, if you will, in Dixie, and the theme song for the North in the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and then interestingly interweaves in a song from the Bahamas, actually, that's just talking about our common human frailty, and that these men that are going off to war, that many of them are not going to come back, that they're bound to die, and these are sons and husbands and fathers, and that we need to really conveys that you need to appreciate the sacrifice that these men made and were willing to make, and that I thought would be a great way to introduce the students to the Civil War and what we were trying to do, what we'll be trying to do, and how to study it, and how to appreciate history.
Right. And absolutely now, since Elvis is being put back into the mainstream culture with the Elvis movie coming out last year, him or his name is, you know, rising up a lot more in the last several years than it has in years past. And you're right. The Civil War is becoming a more black and white issue to many people, and it's not that way. It's never been that way. It was, it's more than just like you said, one key word or one hot button issue. And there's a growing movement to try to break it down to that. And you're right, it's just not true at all. So, what are some aspects of the Civil War that interest you, or besides the Elvis connection? But what are some campaigns or some possible figures that drew you to the Civil War and keep you fascinated by it?
Right. Well, really, my interest in history was first fostered by the Civil War. Um, my grandfather was, I would consider him an amateur historian, so he had other careers, but he was always fascinated by history. And I'm still not sure that he's not the person who knows the most about the Civil War that I've ever met. And he just conveyed to me, I admired him so much, and he conveyed to me this fascination with the Civil War. And so that really just continued, has been a part of my entire life and led to me going ultimately into history and making that a career. The As far as the Civil War being up here in Western Pennsylvania, naturally, Gettysburg, I hope to take the students to the battlefield and as part of the course, and we usually go to Antietam as well, or battlefields that we can get to reasonably. But my interest is as well as far as combining uh, Elvis really came out of my wife and I have been blessed with two boys, and we've one thing that we tried to do is take we were to take the boys. We wanted to get them to all 50 states, and this past summer we were uh, making a southern tour, and it was interesting. It became kind of a combination of America's musical history and America's Civil War history. So we visited the battle. We went to Shiloh. We went to Vicksburg, but that also took us on the Blues Highway. We went to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and naturally we ended up in Memphis, and so Beale Street and Sun Studios, and then of course Graceland. And so this summer I really had a flood of this combination of American culture, Civil War history, and then our musical history. And so those really combined and ended up having me write this article and see Elvis as a way um, to bring Civil War history, but popular culture to young people today. Because I am interested as well, not just in traditional kind of historical topics, but I really am fascinated with, well, how do you get history uh, to young people, and how is it taught? So in the classroom, yes, but also through popular culture. Um, and I really think that one of the jobs of school at all levels is to create Americans. That we're American schools, and especially the United States. You're not going to have a United States if you don't know your culture, and whether that be 19th century American culture in the Civil War, but whether it be important, the musical culture of the 20th century. We've become, as a society, very isolated, and young people just aren't exposed to their heritage, to their culture, and it's a real shame. So I like to try to bring out the beauty of of people of the past and American culture, and have the students celebrate that, and to really know it really is making up their identity, but they don't. If you don't know it, it's kind of you become an amnesiac
Hmm.
if you don't know your past, uh, and we just keep becoming more and more isolated generation from generation, and I'm really interested in having young people know their history, know their heritage.
Right. And having been to Beale Street and Memphis and Graceland, I can say it's definitely worth the trip if you're ever in that part of
Oh,
Tennessee. And
absolutely.
we drove there, my brother and sister-in-law and I, from Southside Virginia, which is about an 11-hour drive, and you don't realize how long Tennessee is
Yeah,
until
right.
you're actually there. And I love the point you made about bringing popular culture into the classroom at all levels, because I'm a former high school teacher myself. I taught government, and one thing that I did is kind of like a bell ringer, a class, starter, is we listen to popular music from all throughout the 20th century, starting back at like Billie Holiday with Strange Fruit, moving into the Vietnam era. Of course, there's dozens of Vietnam protest songs, but I would show them, you're wearing a Rolling Stones shirt. Let's see what the Rolling Stones say about the war in Vietnam, or um, that song, by Edwin Starr, War, what is it good for? So here are all these popular American artists that, folks know, or not necessarily just American, but here are all these artists that people know, that Temptations, Pink Floyd. I mean, even moving into like the '90s country with Garth Brooks, they were putting out songs about American culture, and these, I found that my students knew who these artists were, but had no idea what they were talking about, or they had heard the song but had never made those connections before. So you're right. I think it's a great way to introduce history to kids today, is music, and I can't take credit for that. I got that idea from when I was student teaching in Tennessee. I had a great mentor teacher who did that with her kids, and it rubbed off on me. But going back to the Elvis part, I assume that you are a fan of Elvis, or at least became one during your trip to Graceland.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, no,
what?
absolutely. I can remember I remember as a young child listening to my parents' albums and putting the record on and having the needle hit that, and that there was some magic to that. And then so I always kind of in the background was that appreciation of Elvis has always been there, and then was really rekindled, as I say, by that the 2000 or just this past summer going to Mississippi. So we ended up going to Tupelo, as seeing his birthplace, and then uh, I knew I was interested in going to Graceland and seeing it, but it was hard to explain, like how it really did make just kindled this fascination kind of with him, and an appreciation that uh, I didn't fully have before. And so the family's been listening to lots and lots of Elvis ever since this summer.
Yeah, people don't truly realize the pop icon that he was, and the influence that he had. I mean, there's still thousands of Elvis impersonators today, but you don't see, necessarily Beatles impersonators. You don't
Right.
see, like I said, the Rolling Stones impersonators. You see maybe some tribute bands, but I mean, Elvis impersonators, you can go to your local theater every few months and see a guy there dressed up as Elvis and singing like him. And it's amazing, that just the grasp that he had on culture back then and today. It's, I mean, there was no other one like him, and I doubt we'll ever see anybody rise to that level of stardom ever again.
Yeah, I even think it might be merciful. I just the amount of fame that he had and the pressure that would come with uh, that is is daunting. But yeah, no, I think he's a unique entertainer. I'm fascinated as a historian that there seems to be such clear stages to his career. It seems very unusual to me with his initial kind of birth of rock and roll, and then his army years, and then his film years, and then the Vegas concert years is all fascinating. And that movies are still coming, as you referenced, today in 2023, movies coming out about him. And Sirius Radio has just a station that is the Elvis radio station that just plays Elvis constantly. But he's really fascinating, and kind of too, with what we've been talking about. I listening and researching him a little bit. So many of his fans um, reference how he just has this ability to bring people together from all different stripes. Just kind of seems like everybody, once they find out, kind of love and are interested in Elvis. And that's again what I like using him, maybe particularly with the Civil War and with history in general. I just history today, so many people are using it as a wedge to divide the country, to divide people, when really our education and history and our popular culture and our artists, I think, are much better when we use these to unite us and to appreciate, again, beauty and truth. And so I am happy to try to use Elvis and the Civil War to do that more.
So, at what moment did that first connection between Elvis and the Civil War and American Trilogy happen? Like, at what moment did it all just click for you?
Um, pretty, I guess, pretty recently. I always loved that song and was just so moved by that song. And then I think just recent headlines and this effort to destroy Civil War monuments, and the kind of cancel culture. If anybody says that the Civil War had any more nuance to it than simply slavery, uh, that I just in looking at and then rewatching with the 50th anniversary of the Aloha special, it just struck me as like, well, this is such a healthier uh, period of time potentially, or just certainly a healthier reflection of culture, of being able to respect and look at the nuance and the beauty and the truth of of people, and trying to look at their past. That I just thought, well, this is just so attractive, and the presentation of those songs is just so powerful, um, that I think most people, but I certainly get chills when I hear him sing that song, and the message that I think that's behind that song is resonates so deeply that it always resonated. I always appreciated the beauty and the power of the song, but just in our now with that trip and the preparation for teaching the class, it just really hit me that, wow, this is a powerful presentation of truth here.
You're right. And growing up, I got into Elvis through my older brother. And I grew up listening to all the CDs, and um, ironically, I kind of heard the Aloha stuff first, and then that kind of sparked everything else from there. But you're right, I mean, that's a fantastic concert. We could talk all day about that. How was the most widely streamed concert of all time, even to this day, and just um the story behind that. But I believe you're right. That song is the centerpiece in that set. And I think everything leads up to that, and that's when he reaches the climax of the show, essentially the power and force that he puts behind that. And I don't think that that was just by chance or anything, or just by by sheer luck. I believe that he truly felt that song more so than the rest of them. And I didn't put this in our notes beforehand, but you know, I think about that song as being very similar to the 1968 comeback special closer of "If I Can Dream." You know, the amount of emotion and just the pure raw power that he sings that song with is very similar to 1973's American Trilogy and from Hawaii. I mean, just I mean, I think he's truly feeling it in that moment. And until I read your article, I'd known that Dixie was part of it. I know that Battle Hymn of the Republic was part of it, and they had kind of were bridged together with this little, I mean, you know, other part, which now I, thanks to you, found out is from the Bahamas. But you know, I never really put those all together as a binding force, as a song that could truly bring people together from both sides. So I appreciate you making that connection because I would not have done that on my own.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, no, I agree with your analysis and connection with the comeback special, and but he very it's well documented and known, but I mean he's very consciously representing the United States with that Aloha concert. And it's just, I mean, I've seen things that said that more people watched the Aloha concert than the moon landing, and so it's the most watched event ever, and he really did want to put the best of the United States culture on stage for the rest of the world, and that's what he did. And absolutely, the American trilogy there is, you know, here's the best of our culture, north, south, east, west, you know, put on stage, and how you should understand it. I really think it is a major artistic accomplishment, and the right and a wise understanding of the United States and presentation of it.
Um, and we'll definitely put a link to it or find some way to copy your dispatch article in this video when it gets posted to YouTube somehow, so folks can read it for themselves. But moving on, with that article title, or the article title was Elvis, the King of Civil War Historiography. What exactly did you mean by that title?
Well, I mean, to be honest, like probably I was at one level, I was just trying to be clever. So Elvis being the king, and then I think this is about historiography. So his, you know, so that's, you know, our academic fancy term for just the study of history and how should historians understand these. And so as we've been talking about, I just think Elvis really nails it on the best way to approach history generally, but certainly the Civil War. That this is a multi-causal event. That these are the people fighting it. In particular, these are real people who have people that love them and people that they love, and they have hopes and dreams, and they're willing to put it all on the everything that they've got on the line. And many of them, you know, with their deaths, lose everything that they have and made that sacrifice. And that's that, you know, that's a beautiful and honorable, a moving thing for people to do. And it's so it's just not fair to dismiss, you know, half of them as just, oh, they're just were evil and for an evil institution. That's not what they were. That's not that how they understood it, and that's so it's our job to try to fully understand both sides, all sides on what they really were fighting for, what they thought what they were doing. And so unfortunately, lots of you know, there unfortunately lots of historians, that's their job. Historians should know everything is multi-causal. But for various reasons, and frequently not very good ones, this is an area where people want to just simplify things. And I think for current political gain or for other reasons, I suppose, and just simplify it down too much. So I truly think that like Elvis is demonstrating the correct understanding of the study of history, of historiography, of how one should approach the Civil War. So I thought it was a fair title to say, hey, he's also the king of historiography, of Civil War historiography. This is the way that we should this is the way that we should approach it. And like I mentioned, this is, you know, what I'm going to encourage my students to. This is how you should be looking at the Civil War, and let's look at it honestly and fairly and fully and in a nuanced way.
Right. So going back to the song itself, did you know much of the history of the song prior to writing this, or have you looked it up since then? And do you have any like any fun facts about it, or any neat things that you can share about it?
Uh, well, I don't want to claim to be an expert on the song, but I can tell you it appears to be it was written by Mickey Newberry, and Mickey Newberry is a pretty interesting fella in his own right. I believe this is, you know, it clearly is the most famous. Elvis made it his most famous song. Mickey Newberry sang it as well when it was first released in 1972, and I think in America his at least initially his version, Mickey Newberry's version, charted a little higher than Elvis's. But once Elvis associated with his concerts and with the Aloha Special, it's you know, now firmly an Elvis song. But Mickey Newberry, I'm not an expert on him, but I can tell you that he is one of you know, really one of the greatest American songwriters. I think is fair to say. Lots of American songwriters think of him, and where most people might have heard of him is Waylon Jennings in the Lukenbach, Texas song references in Lukenbach, Texas. You know, they've got Hank Williams Pain songs, Newberry Train songs, and
Mm-hmm.
Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. And so Waylon Jennings takes Hank Williams, Willie Nelson, and Mickey Newberry and joins them together. And so those with Willie Nelson and certainly Hank Williams, you're looking at like the two greatest songwriters for America, maybe generally, but certainly for country music. And he puts Newberry right with those two. And so that's where people might be familiar or have heard Newberry's name go by. And I believe also that Mickey Newberry was a very prolific writer, and my understanding is that he's still the only American songwriter that at the same time charted songs in four different genres. Like he primarily other artists sang his songs, and at the same time he was, I think, in the top 10 or was charting in country, rock and roll, blues, and another genre. But I believe that he at one time had songs in four different genres, and no, I don't believe anybody else has done that.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
And especially back then, it's or the lines between genres have become very blurred today with what is rock, what is country. But back then, I mean, it was, you know, there were rock and roll artists, there were R&B artists, there were country artists, you know, and you
Yeah.
saw very little crossover between them, and so that's an impressive one. And I know that Mickey Newberry also wrote one of my favorite Jerry Lee Lewis songs. Of course, Jerry
Oh,
Lee being from that area of Mississippi, near where Elvis grew up. Song called "She Even Woke Me Up to Say Goodbye," which
oh, sure. Okay, yeah.
yeah, which is referenced by Steve Goodman in the song "You Never Even Call Me by My Name."
Yeah.
Of course, obviously the David Allen Coe fame, but
Yeah.
it's weird, you know, seeing that connection too, because I've heard Waylon's song before, and I've never made that connection. I've just sang the lyrics and moved on. Oh, there's Hank, and I've never thought about that before.
Yeah.
So, and we kind of hit on this earlier. With Elvis being socially conscious, do you think that it was purposeful that he put that song right at the center point of the show, the climax, right before things started to go downhill? He was building up to that moment. Do you think that was 100% purposeful, or was that just the way the set fell in his eyes?
I believe that it was purposeful. As a historian, I like to have, well, where's my written documentation that that's what he was doing, and have I seen that? No, I have not. But the iconic now outfit that he is wearing, that all white jumper, um, with the bald eagle on it, was that I have seen that he specifically went to, I forget his name, but the guy that made all these now famous jumpsuits, and said, like, this is the show for America. You need to make me an outfit that will represent America, and it was designed around the American seal. And so he very consciously was going into the concert, um, knowing that I'm representing the United States to the world, and the best of our culture. So I just don't. So so to me, I absolutely believe that he was building up to that, and that he was, as you were describing, really feeling that, and understanding what he was singing and what he was doing there at the concert. I mean, he's just as an artist, um, I think it's perfectly safe to say, like, he's making these conscious decisions, and that's not the only concert that he did that with, but with a concert that he goes into knowing, I'm trying to represent the United States here. um, and I absolutely think he's building towards it, and making a statement with it.
Right, and you're right. I wish we had some sort of journal or diary entry from him, that says, in black and white, this is what I'm planning on doing.
Mm.
Um, but and also to do a little plug for Graceland, though they're not a sponsor by any means. Um, I'm the kind of person who I like to actually like physically see history, or I like to go to places like you mentioned going to the battlefields earlier. I like to see, the artifacts from history. And if you go to Graceland, they do a great job of, here's all the outfits, the exact outfits from the 68 comeback. Here's all of his jumpsuits that, they still have. And they have most of them,
Yes, yeah,
including the one from Hawaii. So like I thought that was just so cool that even though it's bulletproof glass and there's probably thousands of alarms in that one little room, like I'm still standing right next to the jumpsuit with the bald eagle cape, and
yeah.
um no, I thought that was neat.
And I
One
think that thing weighs, when we talk to the people there, and we're asking them about it, and we talked to this lady who says, well, I've cleaned it, and she was saying that thing is 100 pounds. That she said that like the cape part, like, is why he doesn't wear it most of the concert, is that was, I think, 40 pounds itself. There's so many stones on it, and the whole thing added together came to about 100 pounds. So in the heat of Hawaii and trying to wear that, there's a reason he was always sweating with
Yeah.
wearing these things. Yeah.
I did not know that, and that makes sense. I mean, there's thousands of stones,
Yeah.
on that suit.
Yeah,
I'm
that was one of my favorite places, was the big wall of outfits. But I want to jump in, and for parents and grandparents, but anybody, just echo what you said. And I lived it, and I didn't really anticipate that, what a difference it made in with Elvis. But it's the same thing with battlefields. It's just a different, you can read about them, or watch things, or watch films and so forth, but actually being there, it really does have the potential to ignite an interest and fascination and appreciation like nothing else can. So I absolutely, with Graceland, I get no kickbacks either, but I highly encourage people to actually go to Graceland and try it out. There's reasons why there's songs that sing about, just for some reason I want to go to Graceland, and
Right.
it really does pay off. But that's the case with the battlefields and other cultural markers of try to actually go and it'll really up your love of the place.
Yeah, it's one thing to like read about Little Round Top or watch the movie Gettysburg, but it's something else to sit there, stand on top of it, and you can look down and see Devil's Den. You can look across and see the peach orchard.
Hmm.
You can see the battle happening right there. And, it's something totally different. And that's why
It's totally different.
I tell people all the time, if if I can convince you just to go to a place, I mean, you don't have to read a book about it. You don't have to listen to a podcast on the way. Just go there and read the interpretive signs and just get a sense of what was happening. It'll completely change your view of history.
That's right. That's right.
So one final question for you, and then we'll wrap up. And I know you said you had to get to classes here in a little bit, but what can we today learn from not only this song, but the entire Aloha from Hawaii performance, and just from Elvis being who he was? What are some final takeaways from all of this?
Well, I think, I guess I'm going to go back to what I said is I just about bringing people together. Um, and I think being part of I think that Elvis is part of, the best parts of American culture. And so being aware of and loving your own culture, Elvis is an easy part of that culture to love and to appreciate. And so, and then I think with again his presentation and building towards that America is an easy place to love. And is anything, we live in a fallen world, so is anything perfect? Well, of course not. But boy, we should appreciate what America, what the United States has given us, what it represents in the world, the hard won truths and freedoms that have been provided to us by other folks. And I really think that the biggest problem maybe facing the United States today is just a lack of gratitude and appreciation for what has been provided to us by people in the past. And so we need to, and I think that he's showing with that concert, with that song, that appreciation of sacrifice and a willingness to understand and see beauty and see truth. And so that's what I hope my classes help provide. That's what I hope that encouraging, introducing students to Elvis, introducing them to the Civil War, going, as we've been talking about, going to sites and really seeing it. That's what my wife and I are hoping with our sons is to build a love of country for them. And to do that, you've got to go to these places and see them. You have to know about them and not get isolated on the false in world of electronics and the internet and isolating in just culture that was of this year, but trying to look at the whole span of American history. And that's where I think then love of that love of place is crucial for us. And so much of the culture, the contemporary or modern or popular culture today is rootless. And you got to know your roots. And a tree is alive because it has roots, and a table is dead because it doesn't, and you can move it willy-nilly wherever. And it really makes your life richer if you can put down roots and understand your roots. And so the Civil War, Elvis, these are the roots of what makes America America. And if we're ignorant of those, then we're not going to have a love of place, and you're easily manipulated, and um, you're going to lose that freedom and all these things that we too often take for granted.
And one thing people may not think about when they think about Elvis is Elvis understood both the, or the culture that he lived in at the time, but also the other side of it because of where he grew up. And you've seen that in Tupelo and, given the area that he grew up in, Elvis wasn't always the king.
Right,
He,
for sure.
he grew up in, what we would consider very much poverty standards
Hmm.
today. So he wasn't always the guy. He was wearing rhinestone suits and driving around in all different types of Cadillacs.
Right.
He grew up dirt poor, and so growing up in that part of society too. So he's not some jaded rich guy singing, a song about bringing people together. He has seen it firsthand.
Yeah. Well, and he did it. He sacrificed himself. I meant to loop back to it previously, but like with the stages of his career, can you imagine? Like he comes from just abject poverty. He somehow, makes it through talent and work, gets the opportunity that America provides us, and really has become the king of rock and roll. And then he lays it all down and is drafted in peacetime even, and gives that all up for a couple of years to serve his country in the army, with no guarantee that he's going to come back after his served time and become or remain the king of rock and roll, or go on to be this movie star and
Right.
an entertainer. So he really does understand, and his whole life was willing to sacrifice for the country. It's very hard for me to imagine any popular entertainer today actually saying, "Well, I'm going to put I'm going to put my career on hold for a few years because my country needs me to serve in the army."
Mhm.
And that's just so admirable of him. And I fear, like, we just don't have examples of people doing that, that I know of, it at least, or almost can imagine people doing that today. They would expect, special, that they wouldn't do it, and if they did, they'd want very special treatment. And he was just in a tank company with all the rest of the raw recruits going into the army, and didn't get really didn't get special treatment, or just he could have asked to be put just on an entertainment detail and go around and entertain the
Right.
troops, but he did a regular service, just like everybody else that was drafted. So yeah, he's really admirable in doing that.
Yeah, and one final thing I'll say, because we could talk Elvis all day, is when he comes back from his service for a period of 6 7 years, he doesn't really do the music scene apart from his movies.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he's the king of rock and roll. He's this iconic musician, but for 8 or 9 years, he really didn't
that's
do
right.
much apart from movie soundtracks, which
Yeah,
there were some iconic songs that came out of the movie soundtracks, of course. But when you think of Elvis as a performer, you think of the Ed Sullivan not showing the hips.
yeah,
And then you think of the Las Vegas years and then Aloha from Hawaii in the latter years, but there was a huge gap in there.
that's right.
And that just goes to show you with American spirit and ingenuity, you can be whatever you want to be at whatever stage you want to be at.
Yeah, yeah,
You can constantly reinvent yourself, and that's one thing that Elvis was the king at.
that's right.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for speaking to us today. Like I said, we'll have a link or do something where folks can read the Dispatch article for themselves. And please let us know how your students react to seeing Elvis in their Civil War history class.
Okay, will do. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you.